What's going on, y'all? Wood Talk Sports back again with another video, and today is a good one. NFL free agency has just gotten underway, and it has just been kicking off. And today there's been so much moves. We've had some stuff happen a couple days beforehand, including Russell Wilson to the Steelers happening yesterday or on Sunday. And today, there's been so many moves. As most people probably know, like Josh Jacobs to Green Bay, Saquon to Philly, Brian Burns getting traded to the Giants, Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. There's been so much happening today. And so in today's video, we're going to just basically be diving down, seeing how these are going to work out for these teams, and who are the big winners and losers of this first day. Because there's definitely some winners, and there's definitely some teams who the fans definitely wish they are doing something in the offseason so far. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys, make sure to like and subscribe. If subscribing really helps me out, trying to build a YouTube channel here and do this what I love, and basically turn this into something I can do all the time. I'm doing it all the time right now, alongside of college, and I appreciate it a lot. It's free to subscribe, and you're just supporting me through my journey, and it's really helpful to have people helping me out on something that I love to do. So if you can subscribe, I'd appreciate it, and we're gonna hop into the video right now. The first thing we're going to talk about, and probably the biggest thing we're going to talk about, is Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins was the Minnesota Vikings quarterback for 6 seasons, and last year, only playing about half the year, still had a fantastic outing, in my opinion. 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, I believe about 2,200 yards. Was definitely in the running for MVP until he got hurt. Obviously, he has the best wide receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson, in Minnesota, now leaving him for one of the better young cores in the league in Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London in Atlanta. Atlanta with the new head coach change as well, and Raheem Morris is going to be big. He has came out and already talked about how he probably wouldn't have a job in Atlanta if they had a good quarterback play last season. Desmond Ridder not being very good last year. It's going to be good for Kirk Cousins to show up in this NFC South division, a very weak division where the leader has been 9-8 and 8-9 the past 2 years. And some of these teams are getting not that much better. Obviously, the Buccaneers have been retaining their guys, especially in Baker and Mike Evans. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But Kirk Cousins, a veteran QB, joining this team full of young studs, I think is something that we got to really kind of look at a little more. As when you look at what he had in Minnesota, he had really good weapons. He's going to a team with also pretty good weapons as well. Obviously, no number one wide receiver in the league, but you've got a really young, promising tight end, a very promising deep threat. You've got money to go get some more guys, I believe. You've got Bijan Robinson, who in my opinion is going to be a top 5 running back in the NFL easily. And then you've got just the new look of this team with the head coach and everything. He's a great addition for this Falcons squad. I would not be surprised if this Falcons squad is hosting a playoff game come January next year. And I think this is a very good signing for Atlanta because it makes them not have to worry about possibly trading up for a quarterback in the first round if they want to fix their quarterback problem with a rookie, whether that would be like Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy. They don't have to worry about that as much. And also, they can have their younger guy in Desmond Ridder sit behind Kirk Cousins throughout this time and learn valuable information from Kirk Cousins and probably shape himself into a better quarterback so when it comes his time, maybe he can prove that he's learned and he is going to be better for the Falcons. Anyways, if I'm going to put a grade on this, I would honestly put this in the A's. High B, low A, B plus, A minus type grade. Because the only hole on this Falcons offense was the quarterback position. And you went out and got yourself that quarterback in Kirk Cousins. So good hire, good signing from Atlanta. And he's going to be a great pairing for the coach that they just signed in Raheem Morris from LA. And we're going to get into the next one now. Another big quarterback moving in the offseason, and only taking 1.2 million off of his team's salary. The Denver Broncos are paying Russell Wilson $38 million next year. And his new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are paying him 1.2. Steelers find their quarterback that they need to solve their QB problem. Pickett has not looked good. You know, Russell Wilson looked pretty decent last season. Big step up from his first season in Denver with Nathaniel Hackett at head coach. He had 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns through the air, also a rushing touchdown. He's going to be very exciting to see in Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh's another team that seemed like they're always a quarterback away. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense. They've got good young players. They've got Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. They've got George Pickens looking to possibly trade Deontay Johnson. But I think that Russell Wilson is worth it. I mean, you're paying him basically pocket change, and you're getting a good quarterback for your team. This just makes the AFC North even more wide open. I mean, it's always wide open every year with the Bengals, with the Ravens, Browns, and now the Steelers with an actual quarterback. It's just, you got to look and say, is this team playoff contender, deep in the playoffs, or they make the playoffs like every year with, I mean, last season they had Mason Rudolph as their starter and they were 10-7. You put Russell Wilson on this team. I think this team is winning the division, possibly. So the Steelers really made a big step up. I like the Russell Wilson pickup. A lot of people are grading this kind of low. I like it. I'm going to give it a B+. I really think the Russell Wilson pickup is huge for this team, especially because quarterback is such a big need, and they can go solve their center's problems by either getting Connor Williams or getting probably Jackson Powers-Johnson in the first round, if not getting another offensive lineman. But Russell Wilson to Pittsburgh is huge, in my opinion, and it's going to be big for the Steelers and for Mike Tomlin. I mean, congrats to him. He's got himself a quarterback. And the Steelers are looking legit. We're going to be seeing a lot of this duo again. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans are both coming back to Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, 2 years, I believe it was $50 million, $52 million, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. I don't have it pulled up on my screen, but he's, I mean, having one of the most underappreciated careers of all time, 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and then Baker Mayfield getting $100 million if he can earn all of that over, I think it's a 3-year span. 30, 30, and 40 is his contract breakdown. Baker Mayfield really revitalized his career this last season with Tampa Bay, winning the division 9-8, having his career high in yards and touchdowns. And Tampa Bay, honestly, is a very promising squad if they can keep their stuff together. I really like Rachaad White, their running back, and he's just now, blossoming. Baker Mayfield, as I said, revitalizing his career, keeping your number one wide receiver in Mike Evans. You've got that good wide receiver core. Your defense has looked pretty solid last year. You got to find a way to retain Devin White. He is a free agent. And just this team in general, as much as I don't like the Buccaneers, I don't like the Falcons either, but I talked about them. He is a guy that I look at and I say, or Mike Evans is, I don't like playing against him, although he hasn't really done too much against the Saints because of Marshawn Lattimore. But I don't like playing against Mike Evans because he's a deep threat target, and him and Baker connected really fast in Tampa Bay last year. I mean, really, really quick, which is something that's dangerous. I mean, having that quick of a connection between a wide receiver and a quarterback is something that doesn't really happen too often, which is why I look at these two and I say that was their two key pivotal things they needed to do this offseason, and they got it done before free agency really even started. So those are two really big moves. I'm not really going to put a grade on these because they aren't new moves. They're re-signings, in key re-signings, that is. But Baker, I thought should have been comeback player of the year. Obviously, what Joe Flacco did was absurd, coming off the couch and pretty much doing what he did, almost leading the league in yards through the time he played, just being a gunslinger. I think Baker Mayfield deserved comeback player of the year, though, for all that he did. And then Mike Evans, as I've said, he's chasing Jerry Rice now for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He's second all time now, and I'm surely he'll hit it. This is going to be a great duo to watch. for the future. And them in Atlanta is going to be something fun to watch this next season, just competing for the NFC South. So good re-signs, I'll say. Great two re-signs. And we'll get into the next one with a team up north making some big moves. Now, Josh Jacobs signed with the Green Bay Packers today, and after leading the league in rushing yards 2 seasons ago, last season he played on the franchise tag. He was also one of those guys that they were kind of wonky about. So he played on that for the year with the Raiders. He had came out and said he wanted to be in Vegas if they could get the deal done. Vegas was not willing to get the deal done, and Green Bay was, which then led to him going to Green Bay. This led to a domino effect, though. He signed with Green Bay. A.J. Dillon is a free agent right now, and then he ended up getting Aaron Jones released. And that is something that is a big question for me, is where Aaron Jones is going to go. Let's talk about Jacobs for a second, though. Then I'll finish that up with that. Josh Jacobs, not as a productive season than it was 2 seasons ago. And you look at what he did this last season, he was still pretty good. I mean, as I said, not rushing yard leader caliber good, but good enough to get a lot of focus from a lot of teams. I mean, in a running back heavy market this offseason, I mean, so many running backs still. We got Austin Eckler to talk about still. We got Derrick Henry, who's not signed. We've got, as I just said, Aaron Jones, who's now a free agent. So many running backs. And it's for the Packers to go out and get him. It was a little surprising to me. He's a good running back, but you have Aaron Jones, who I think has been the Green Bay guy for so long, and someone who really I don't think was worth getting rid of. But Josh Jacobs was good. He's younger. I like watching him play. He's been a stud for Vegas/Oakland the time he's been there. I think he was there for 1 year in Oakland, maybe not. But he's worth a contract. I was really expecting him to go somewhere else, either stay with Vegas or go somewhere like Houston. Same with Saquon. Maybe go to his divisional rival in the Chargers. Maybe go to Philly. Maybe go to the Chicago. I was really not expecting Green Bay to go out and try and get a running back, but they went and got Josh Jacobs. I think this is going to be an interesting one for him. I like him with Jordan Love. He definitely did some good stuff last season. I think Aaron Jones wasn't really worth cutting, though. I mean, Tony Pollard as well, that's another guy that just popped into my mind. And this makes me think where Aaron Jones is going to go. Obviously, now the Raiders are going to be looking running back, which you could see them go and getting Aaron Jones maybe. Zamir White was the running back towards the end of the season for him. Actually did pretty decent. Could maybe possibly just stick with Zamir White. Who knows what the Raiders will do. Raiders as well also signing Gardner Minshew to a 2-year deal. And another guy that we'll talk about towards the end of this video. Raiders could probably go different ways in quarterback. But they'll be looking for a new running back in town with Jacobs going to Green Bay. I'm going to make this signing not that great of a signing. I would say a C, around a C grade. Didn't really make sense when you have Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones available now for a team, in my opinion, like Dallas, who doesn't have a running back with Tony Pollard gone. Rico Dowdle is your starting running back now, and then you have Deuce Vaughn. I'm excited to see what happens because of this. It's just basically a trickle-down effect. And we'll move on to the next one, which is another running back. Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles, confirmed today. He even posted on X 2 little eagle emojis confirming it. Going to a divisional rival is kind of crazy to think about, but Saquon, not the biggest year last season, only 962 and 10 rushing touchdowns. Playing on the franchise tag, held out almost in training camp for a bit because he wanted a better contract. Giants weren't able to give it to him, and they kind of just let him walk this time. And you look at what the Giants did. They went and got Devin Singletary to replace him. Really not that big of a replacement, and huge downgrade. Saquon Barkley in a Philly offense, this might be one of the most dangerous versions of Saquon we've seen. You had rookie year Saquon, who was absolutely amazing to watch. I mean, I loved watching him his rookie season. Last year, when they made the playoff appearance and beat the Vikings in the wild card round, he looked great that season. Daniel Jones didn't look too terrible that season. The Giants are a very dysfunctional franchise, though. And does anybody blame Saquon for wanting to get out of New York? No, because that team is so dysfunctional and they don't know what they're doing. Front office, just not great. Saquon Barkley is a top 10 running back potential in the right offense, and when you give him the opportunities, some of these plays that I'm showing right here, just he's making breakout plays, all in. He's making the play with his legs and with his ability. It's shorter things, and then he's getting those extra yards after the catch or after the handoff, after contact. Saquon Barkley's a stud, and I mean, you look at some of the running backs that have been very, very successful in the Philly offensive scheme. Miles Sanders, we had DeAndre Swift last year. Boston Scott looks good sometimes when he comes in. Kenneth Gainwell's looking good when he comes in. You see a lot of guys, Jordan Howard, like all of these running backs that aren't the biggest of names, and they look fantastic in this Eagles offense. So putting a guy who's already being considered as a top 10 guy inside of the Philly offense, he's going to be leading the league in rushing yards, in my opinion. It's very plausible he does that. And him and Jalen Hurts is going to be a deadly backfield. Obviously, you've still got a crazy wide receiver core as well. Adding on to the Philly offense is fantastic. Now, I don't think that's Philly's number one need. Obviously, I think they needed the running back spot filled, but their number one need is kind of solving their defensive problems, especially with corner. So I don't think this will affect their drafting, draft-wise in the offseason, but this was a fantastic pickup for the Eagles. And overall, I wouldn't say it's an A grade. I'm going to grade Saquon Barkley to the Philadelphia Eagles as probably a B+. I think it's a good pickup. As I said, top 10. He has the potential to be an A+ pickup because it's Saquon Barkley. But Philly's going to be a dangerous team looking to make sure that Dallas doesn't win the division again and trying to come back to the Super Bowl after making it 2 years ago for Super Bowl 57 and then obviously having the collapse they did this last year. Saquon Barkley is going to be a big piece for them. And we'll get into the next one, which includes the Giants. Here's a big pickup. The Giants trade for Brian Burns. Panthers franchise tagged him, didn't want to pay him the money he wanted, and the Giants were willing to. 5 years, $150 million. I believe it's 85 guaranteed. So not the full $30 million a year, but still, this dude is a stud. I mean, absolute beast off the edge. Having him and Kayvon Thibodeau on opposite sides is going to be huge for the Giant defense. Building up a big, strong, scary defense for New York just kind of makes it evident that they need to go offense in the draft now. And you look at guys where they could go. You know, you look at like Malik Neighbors if he's available. Offensive line maybe. And Joe Alt keep Daniel Jones protected. Maybe you don't trust in Daniel Jones. You go with J.J. McCarthy at 6 or trade up and try and get one of the other quarterbacks. You look at a Giants squad, and I kind of liked their defense a little bit last year. It wasn't great to start the season. It looked okay towards the end. It's still very young, very developmental. They need that system. It's not good. Okay, let's be honest. It's not good. But adding Brian Burns to this defense is pretty big. However, it was a very confusing thing for me. I didn't expect a guy like Brian Burns to go to a team like the Giants. I expected him to go to a better team than New York. But this is just the start for what the Giants are trying to do. Sounds like they're trying to make a solid defense. Defense wins championships. I mean, what can I say? But for this sign and trade, I don't know. It's just I wouldn't grade it too high. The Giants got rid of a second and a fifth for Brian Burns, which isn't that gigantic of an asking price, although that second-round pick was very valuable. It's going to be nice for the Panthers, though, because they'll have the first pick in the second round and then the sixth pick in the second round, I think it is. He is going to make plays on defense, but he's going to be on another poor team. So I'm excited to see how he does. And I'm going to grade this for now. The Giants, just I mean, he's a good player, so I can't really rank him like a C, D. I'll B minus, probably C plus, maybe somewhere around there, just because of it doesn't really make too much sense compared to what they need. Yes, getting pass rush is huge, but your offense is your main need, and you should go out and get an offensive lineman, especially after losing Saquon now too. You should probably worry about that. They did get Devin Singletary, which isn't that great. I mean, he's all right, but Brian Burns is an interesting move, and I'm excited to see how he goes for the Giants. And we're gonna head on to the next one right now. Austin Eckler to the Commanders. Very interesting one, in my opinion. After losing Antonio Gibson, they want to keep the backfield duo alive by getting another good running back for him. Eckler, not that great of a season this last year, but in 2022, he reached the end zone, I think, 20 plus times, which was huge, and he looked fantastic in 2022. You give him a team that he's able to work behind. I mean, the Commanders, who are making moves this offseason with a lot of money. Frankie Louvu from the Panthers. Zach Ertz, they signed to a one-year deal. Biadish, I think that's his name, from the Cowboys, the center, trying to buff up that O-line in Washington. Adding Austin Eckler on top of that is another thing that's big for them, because now you have a big running back duo. And then obviously it seems like they're going to go QB in the draft, although some Commander fans are not willing to give up on Sam Howell yet. You get a QB in the draft, you build up on this, you just keep building up on this free agency. You've got so much money still. There's so many guys available. I think a guy they could possibly go for is Connor Williams, the center from Miami. This is an interesting one for me. If I were to grade Austin Eckler to the Commanders, I'd say it's in the C's, because Eckler didn't look great last year, but I think they're able to get a very good player on a discounted price compared to how he played last season, and he's a guy who's going to be able to reach the end zone a lot. This also led to the domino effect of, the Chargers signing Gus Edwards, who is a power back, run-heavy back. I mean, not really much of a receiving guy. Something that intrigues me that the Chargers did with that is Harbaugh loves to run the football, so we might not see that much passing from Herbert. Obviously, that's going to be probably their key part of the offense. But now with Eckler gone and Gus Edwards steps in, a very power-running back, I could see the Chargers now running the ball a lot. Last running back I'm going to talk about today is Tony Pollard from the Dallas Cowboys, now a Tennessee Titan. Him and Tyjae Spears in the backfield for Tennessee now. It's going to be very interesting to see how those two work together, as basically confirming Derrick Henry is no longer going to be a Titan. Derrick Henry could very possibly go to Dallas. I think Aaron Jones will probably go to Dallas if any running back available goes there. And Derrick Henry will probably go to Baltimore. This signing, I mean, Tony Pollard stepped into the role last year as the number one running back. Everybody expecting a huge thing from him after splitting with Zeke 2 seasons ago and being the much more dominant guy for the Cowboys. In a very underwhelming season for him, only seeing the end zone about 5 times, I believe it is. So not what you expected out of Tony Pollard, especially when he has got the capabilities running the ball and catching it through the air. So he's gonna be an interesting signing for Tennessee, because especially what they can do in the draft at number 7, they could go wide receiver with Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. I personally still think they'll go offensive line, get Joe Alt, maybe Talise Fuaga, Olufishanu, and really buff up that line. Because if Derrick Henry was able to do what he did, I mean, Derrick Henry is absolute dominance, but getting a speedy guy like Tony Pollard behind a good O-line, if they can build up their O-line, is going to be big for him. But this signing, I mean, I thought it was right, especially because you're going to move away from Henry. I was really hoping to see Tyjae Spears become the RB1 for this team, but it seems like it's not the case with Tony Pollard available. And then, as I said, for Dallas, that leaves the hole for running back open. And you also lost your starting center. So that's a big thing as well. You go out and you say, is Dallas going to pursue Connor Williams? Or is Dallas going to go interior line? Do they go Zach Frazier in the first round? Do they go Graham Barton, who we know can make that change to the center in the first round? And, I mean, you'll find out when I get my next mock draft out what I think. But Pollard to the Titans, I'm gonna give it a B minus. It's a good replacement out of the guys that were available. Obviously, no Saquon, no DeAndre Swift, no Josh Jacobs available, and obviously no Derrick Henry. But we know that he's moving on from him. So I'll be interested to see if Tony Pollard can really live up to his true fantastic RB1 potential that everybody was expecting him to have, and see how he does with Will Levis in Tennessee. Joining Josh Jacobs in Green Bay is Xavier McKinney, safety from the Giants. Now, this is big because Darnell Savage signs with the Jaguars today, so they lose a safety, and safety is a big need for the Packers. I've been having them taking DeJean in most of my mock drafts because he is a very expendable player who could go and play safety for the Packers. They need it. So getting Xavier McKinney, who is a Pro Bowl safety, I love watching this dude play. He's from Alabama, and he's been a stud for New York. He's going to be a good pickup for this Packers team, and this Packers team is looking dangerous, man. I mean, if they can really keep on buffing up this defense with a very young, promising core, and on the offensive side, they're getting a young, promising core on the defensive side now, especially starting with McKinney. Get a defensive guy in, the draft, first round probably, or go get tackle because they just got rid of David Bakhtiari, who will most likely be a New York Jet. Go join Aaron Rodgers in New York. But I'm excited to see what Xavier McKinney can do in Green Bay. I think this is a great signing. I'm going to honestly put this in the A's, in the A range, because it's positional need, positional value. He fits every box for that Packers defense. And so Xavier McKinney, I'll give you around the A range for this signing. Packers doing fantastic in the offseason so far this year with Jacobs and McKinney. But that's a good signing, and we're going to get into our last main one of the day right now. Las Vegas, this is your new defensive lineman, Christian Wilkins from the Miami Dolphins. I really like this pickup. Him and Max Crosby together are going to be dangerous. I mean, they can't solve their franchise QB situation right now, so what are they going to do? They're just going to dominate the other quarterbacks in their division. Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the league. Wilkins, one of the best D tackles in the league. I mean, he looks fantastic. I love watching him play. He's also got he's a great personality on the field as well. And the Raiders now buffing up the defense with Antonio Pierce as the head coach. I'm really excited to see what Vegas can do. I think that they've got a good future ahead of them if they can fix their quarterback situation, because Aiden O'Connell isn't the answer. And then maybe, obviously get themselves a running back now with Jacobs gone, and maybe look towards the future a little bit with their wide receivers. I still think they go offensive lineman in the draft if there's not a corner available that they like more. This team could go any way. Christian Wilkins, it just buffs up that defensive line, which is something that, every team needs. They got clips against the Raiders here of things that he did. He's just phenomenal. One of the better free agents in the draft, in the offseason, this offseason. Now, you look at the Raiders as a whole and you say, well, they just signed Gardner Minshew for 2 years. Is Gardner Minshew their solution? No, I don't think so. But rumors are saying that it's really gearing up and really heating up, that Justin Fields to Las Vegas is very possible. And I think that's what I personally think that's what's going to happen this year, is Justin Fields is going to be a Las Vegas Raider next season. And that could be their missing piece on offense. And this just even helps even more, getting Christian Wilkins on your defense. So now the Raiders just get more stars on the field for them. And I'm excited to see how Vegas does next year. This is also a very good grade. I'm going to give it an A- for the Las Vegas Raiders. And this team is going to be something for the future. Now that I've got a bunch of the bigger things out of the way, we'll take a basic look at some of the positions that top players. Most of the starting quarterbacks are gone. Gardner Minshew, the only other not really true starting quarterback, is still there. He's with the Raiders now. Most of these players would probably be backups for a lot of teams, so there's not really much to talk about on these. Now, when it comes to running back, there is a lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. We talk about them. Someone I didn't point out too much, DeAndre Swift to the Bears. I think that's a big one. You put him in the backfield when you get Caleb Williams and probably Rome Odunze. Those are the two guys I think are going to Chicago. They've got a pretty high-powered offense. They got to obviously fix the O-line problem, which they can start on doing right now in the offseason. But huge. I think it's huge what they can do there. Antonio Gibson, as I said, to the Patriots. Gus Edwards, as I said, to the Chargers. Singletary to the Giants, of course. Now, Derrick Henry and J.K. Dobbins are the two big names that you look at and say, oh, they're not signed yet. Dobbins, don't know where he will go yet fully. Henry, I think, still goes to Baltimore. And then, obviously, Aaron Jones isn't on this list. I think he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy because he is from El Paso area and went to UTEP. Wide receiver, not much happened. Michael Pittman did sign a 3-year deal today. And then, obviously, Gabe Davis signed with the Jaguars. Really not the biggest thing. Kendrick Bourne, it re-signed. Calvin Ridley, Hollywood Brown, Darnell Mooney are the three guys I really would look at. I think Calvin Ridley goes to the Chiefs probably. Marquise Brown, I think the Cardinals try to keep him and pair him up with Marvin Harrison Jr. if they can get him in the draft. Next up, tight ends. Dalton Schultz and Hunter Henry, really the only two bigger names. Maybe Noah Fant, Gerald Everett as well. Dalton Schultz re-signing. Fant probably going to go back to Seattle as they got rid of Will Dissly. So that's that for the tight ends. Offensive tackle, Tyron Smith, not signed still. A lot of teams could use his help. It doesn't sound like he's going back to Dallas. So Dallas is likely to go offensive line in the first round. But a lot of guys available still for a lot of teams that need it. Center, the big guy is Connor Williams, especially after Andre James got re-signed by the Raiders and Cushenberry got signed by Tennessee. Big deal for that man. And obviously, as I said, Biadish for the Commanders from Dallas. I mean, the Commanders finally fixed it. I believe Cushenberry was a Commander. So getting that guy really just weakens Dallas's O-line, and which is nice because you're weakening your divisional rival. But that's big for them. Now, here's my big thing is the guard position. Graham Glasgow and Jonah Jackson, the two guards from the Detroit Lions. A lot of people thought that they would retain both, but no. Jonah Jackson joining Kevin Dotson, who the Rams were able to re-sign. Those two in the interior O-line for Los Angeles is big. I mean, with the team they've got right now, I mean, the 10-7 team really shocked a lot of people. That's a big signing, and keeping Stafford safe is honestly the biggest thing you have to do, and they're doing that with getting Jonah Jackson and keeping Kevin Dotson. So that's a big plus for the Rams. Another thing, Robert Hunt to the Panthers. I really like that. Your biggest problem as the Panthers right now isn't trying to get Bryce Young. Obviously, it's getting him some weapons, but protecting him too. He had no time ever, no time. He's basically just fending for himself, he's defending for himself. So getting Robert Hunt was big. We're going to look at the interior O-line. Not too much except the Christian Wilkins thing. Leonard Williams and DJ Reader, two big things that I wanted to see. They're still available. They could go anywhere, honestly. But then a lot of re-signs. Chris Jones, Matabike, Grover Stewart. I'm excited to see what happens there. Bilo Nichols from the Raiders went to Arizona. But we'll see how this goes. We had another Arizona Justin Jones. And then edge rushers, Josh Allen, franchise tag by the Jags. Burns was franchise tag, but then sent to the Giants, as we talked about. Huff to the Eagles, which I thought was an interesting one. Grenard to the Vikings. Zadarius Smith just re-signed. Leonard Floyd with the Niners. And the Niners, that one's interesting now that Chase Young's still a free agent. Makes me think whether or not they stick with him. Joey Bosa probably likely to be cut. Probably will be a Niner if it's possible. My big one that a lot of people aren't talking about is Autry to the Texans and Ginkle, Andrew Van Ginkle to the Vikings. I think those are two very appreciated signings for those two squads. Linebacker, big thing is Patrick Queen still. Frankie Louvu to the Commanders, but Patrick Queen still available. Both Tampa linebackers, still available. You look at those two, and I think it's worth getting both if you're Tampa Bay. But my big thing is Patrick Queen. I mean, any team could use him. He's great. I believe he was a Pro Bowler this last season. And as a Saints fan, I wanted the Saints to draft him, and obviously I think the Saints could do well with picking him up. He's going to be a game changer for whoever gets him. Blake Cashman to the Vikings as well, to pair him up with Ivan Pace Jr. Corner, we had a lot of re-signings, except Aluzier with the Titans. You have Sean Bunting going to the Cards, and Jeffrey Okudah going to the Texans. Jalen Johnson was the big one, re-signing with the Bears. That was huge for Chicago. And then Snead being franchise tagged by the Chiefs, but he is a non-exclusive, so we could see him possibly going somewhere else next season. As for safeties, Kyle Duggar franchise tag, Winfield franchise tag. We talked about Xavier McKinney, Geno Stone joining the Bengals for 2 years, $15 million. Had a lot of interceptions last year. There's a good amount of safeties still on the board. Jeremy Chin, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Julian Blackman, Jordan Whitehead, C.J. Gunnar-Johnson. I mean, there's so many safeties available. And there's so many teams that could use a safety. All of these guys could be scrambled all over the place. Kevin Byard to the Bears, just building up that secondary. So many people. Tracy Walker, Terrell Edmonds, as I said, Jordan Poyer, Eddie Jackson. All these players could really go somewhere that I think they could be a big starter and benefit for. But if we're talking true free agency winners, I think the big one, when you look at, especially like with these Chicago Bears, would probably be one. Getting Jalen Johnson, I think, was the big one. Another winner would probably be the Packers right now with Jacobs and McKinney. Another winner, when you look at some of the things they've done. The Falcons, obviously, getting Kirk Cousins. The Steelers paying Russell Wilson for nothing. My big losers, though, is the Dallas Cowboys, who haven't done anything this free agency. All they've done is lose players. We'll see what they try and do later in the free agency period. But another winner, I would say, is the Raiders. They're kind of a loser, though, at the same time. But biggest loser would probably be Dallas. Biggest winner would probably be, honestly, Pittsburgh or Chicago. But that's going to be it for me today. And I hope you guys enjoyed our first free agency tracker recap. And these are been very interesting. Free agency has been very, very chaotic almost this year so far. And I'm excited to see what happens more with all of the guys that still aren't signed. And if you enjoy, as I said, make sure to subscribe. It's free. Like the video, comment down below who you hope your team's going to get, who your team did get, what you think about some of the new pickups. And I will see y'all in the next one. Thank y'all for watching, and peace out.